To the Black girl who is ready to change her life and doesn't know where to begin, I see you and this is for you. Welcome back to the Black Girl Seen podcast, where we talk all things feeling seen, known, and loved for Black women. I am your host, Kaylin Wilson, a licensed clinical social worker and therapist in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm so excited to be back. I took a little break. I hope you enjoyed last month's theme of being seen in love. And if you're new here, I encourage you to go back. Well, I recommend you go back to the beginning because there's so much material there, and welcome to the podcast. But I really implore you to go back to the February episodes where we talked about being seen in love, relationships with ourselves, with romantic partners, and even with our families. I think there was some really good content in there that set the tone for a lot of what I hope we do this year, which is allow ourselves to be seen in the ways that we normally don't. Today, when this episode airs, it's daylight savings time. The sun is back. At least it's here to stay longer throughout the day. And fun fact about me, I used to not care about that. Like, I used to actually be a little excited, mostly because I'm a winter baby and I like the fall and all that kind of stuff. But as I've gotten older, I'm just like, this is so unnecessary for the sun to go down so early. So I'm thrilled to be able to go take my late evening, quote unquote, late evening strolls and the sun still be there. Not that I was taking walks in the dark, but you get it. So I'm excited for what that means for all of us. And it ushers in the season of spring, which will be hitting toward the end of the month. And it made me think about this theme of a Black girl in bloom and what it really looks like to go through a season of transformation. So that is what we're going to be talking about this month. And our first episode, as you see in the title, we're going to talk about being a Black girl in hiding. Now, I know we've talked about hiding before. It's one of our first episodes. That was such a big place where it occurred to me that we do this so much and the power of being seen. So if you want to go back and listen to that episode, I think that'd be a great pair. And I wanted to talk about what it looks like when you notice that you're hiding and you're ready to not hide anymore. It's going beyond just recognizing that something feels different, something feels off, something feels not fulfilling in your life, and that you want to change that thing. And throughout the month, we're going to talk about what that process of change can be like. I think a lot of times we see people at the end of their journeys, and I do that with air quotes very intentionally because what really even is the end. And we forget, or we don't always know or honor the process it took to get there. I think I reference this a lot, whether it's on the podcast or in my therapy work. I love award season. I love watching Viola Davis get up there and tell us in the most powerful ways all the things she's been through before she got that award. And I love to celebrate all the people who are having their moment. And I love when they tell their story, or I love when I could see in their eyes that this is truly the cherry on top, that they had been working for years or that they've gone through so much to get to that moment. And I think and it's not our fault, have come to overvalue the quote unquote end and the prize and the trophy, not realizing that what makes that moment so powerful is the transformation we go through on the way. And so we're going to talk a lot about what it looks like when we first enter into that recognition that we want to go through a journey. And in the following episodes, we're going to talk about what it's like to grieve in that journey. We are going to talk about what it's like to be waiting in that journey, because that's just as challenging, and what we probably got wrong about healing. So let's get into it. So, I like to start off with talking a little bit about how I'm allowing myself to be seen in this season, or if I have a guest, asking them, which we'll have more guests coming up later on this year. I'm very excited about that. For me, I realized that one of the ways that I'm allowing myself to be seen in this season is slowing down. Surprise, surprise. A lot of what I'm going to be talking about is something that I'm going through. I literally feel like I am in a cocoon. I feel like a little caterpillar who is squashed in tight quarters trying to get out. And I recognize that I was forcing a lot of that process, and that forcing is not the way to go. Forcing, fixing, figuring out all that stuff is not quite the way to go. We really want flow. We really want to go into a process of allowing and like the metamorphosis. And I remember learning about that in school and being like, oh, it's not cute to become a butterfly. Like what happens after everything is cute, but before that, it's not cute. And I'm in that right now. And I'm imagining that some of you are in that as well. And in order to really honor that process, I'm really leaning into slowing down in order to speed up. And so that's partly why some of these episodes are going to be really short. I wanted to kind of drop some seeds, along with the theme of blooming that you can carry with you as I prepare to ramp back up for things moving forward. So that's a way that I think I've been allowing myself to be seen in this season. And I hope that you can take that as some inspiration if you're nodding your head or if you're also acknowledging that maybe things are overwhelming right now, things are too much, or even that you recognize that what you are doing isn't working for you anymore and you want to pivot. With that being said, I do think a lot of what sparked this was recognizing more ways in my life that I might have been hiding. And I think we've talked about this before in the sense of some really big ways, like not speaking up, not living in a life that we want to live in, maybe allowing our family to control our lives or hiding from partnership. All those things are real. And I think it even comes up in maybe noticing that your brain and your body works a certain way, but your life isn't built around that because you never had permission to. I started to realize some of the ways that I was trying to uphold relationships in my life. And I was like, oh, that's not that's not sustainable. I might be in safer relationships, but I'm still using some of the tools from the unsafe relationships in order to be in this one. And I don't like that. Or I recognize that that's still a form of hiding. Maybe some of the hiding that you're noticing is bigger. Maybe you do know it's time for a new job, new partner, new friend, new city, etc. And there's again a moment where it hits you that this must change, and that could be scary. I think it makes sense to know that it's helpful to pause and plan before you pivot. I'm going to say a lot of cheesy things in this series just because it's been helpful to me. I'm going through this process myself, and some of these words just come to me and they're helping me to regulate as I'm realizing, okay, something's got to change. And I felt so much pressure to floor it, push on the gas, do all the things, new deadlines that are completely unrealistic, but I'm going to hold myself to them anyway. If that worked, we would have all done that. We would have all changed. And so I recognized that it was helpful to pull back and pause and really connect with what am I noticing doesn't fit anymore? Are they really glaring like a relationship, a partner, even a position in a company? Or might it be small that you haven't been on a vacation in a long time and you really want to go on one? You realize that there's a certain part of your self care routine that isn't sustainable anymore, or something that you really want to add, or a way that you're showing up in spaces or even on dates or in relationships that you really want to change, that you really want to investigate and interrogate if this is really the way that you want to keep showing up. Getting clear on that is one of the most important pieces, not because you have to be able to predict everything. It's more so that sometimes we feel a level of discomfort in our lives, and because we don't take the time to really understand it, we rush and we take the patterns with us. That's why I really love the quote, wherever you go, there you are. Although sometimes I use that as a reason not to do things, it really helps me ask myself, do I really need another journal? Or is this a pattern I have of avoiding some of the things in my life? Or is this a system that doesn't work for me, but I keep trying to force it? And I think a new planner is going to change that. I've overcome that. I stopped buying planners a very long time ago. In fact, that's why I bought a tablet, and it's really helped. So shout out to my girls who think that another planner will change your life. And maybe it will. Maybe it's worth a try. And maybe you've noticed like, okay, I think I'm tired of changing partners and the patterns repeat, changing jobs and the patterns repeat. Maybe we can learn to pause in this moment and really connect some dots around what's actually going on and what doesn't feel good so that we can be really intentional about that pivot. I also want to name that being seen is an active process. I think we talked about this in some of the episodes last month. And the idea of being seen feels so passive sometimes because it feels more like someone just so happens to see us. They just so happen to get it. They just so happen to understand it. Or we are living a life that just so happens to fit now all of a sudden. It's really active. It's a process of connecting with yourself, seeing yourself, and allowing the visibility, knowing that everything after that is beyond you. Everything after that is above you. Others seeing you, others connecting with you, that also connects to their capacity to see people. And once that part is controlled for, once you are in the vicinity or in the spaces that can hold you and see you, everything else is up to you. So that is a bit of why it can be really helpful to pause when you recognize that you want to make changes so that you are showing up in a way that's actually going to move you toward the experience of feeling seen. I've kind of named a few examples here and there, and this can be where if you approach friendships feeling like you have to be the one to give and do, and the way people love you is by how much you care for them, but you've been saying that you want to feel like you're in mutual friendships, then you might want to take with you new tools around allowing other people to invite you out, allowing other people to care for you, actually expressing your needs and your wants, actually saying no sometimes and allowing people the space to show you that they can respect your boundaries just as much as they can show up for you. That's different than just thinking, I need new friends. That's where I think sometimes it stops. It's my friendships don't feel good. I need new friends. My partner ain't doing it for me no more. I'm going to get back in the dating pool. My family has been stressful, so I'm just going to go to my chosen family. Wonderful, lovely. And I commend you and applaud you for knowing that those things don't feel good for you. And can we pause and show up and like, well, what role have I played in this experience? Not that I'm taking full responsibility for all of it, but I'm taking accountability for my piece of it so that I can be empowered moving forward to show up in ways that are going to facilitate my experience of being seen that I really actually want. And so much of this process really comes back to something that I don't think I've talked as much about, and I look forward to talking about later, which is self trust. Somewhere along the way, we stopped trusting ourselves. So, how can we connect with what is ours and what's someone else's? How can we connect with what we really want? How can we show up in hoping and believing for something different when it's hard to even believe in ourselves anymore because we don't trust ourselves to show up for ourselves? If that's you, I see you. I think some of what happens in our relationships and our life experiences when we start hiding, when we feel unimportant, when we feel like we don't matter, when we feel unloved, when we feel overlooked, all of those really big words that carry a lot of pain, somewhere along the way, we start to question ourselves and we start to internalize all of those experiences. And so that's why I kind of wanted to break apart the oversimplified version of change, which is that, you realize something isn't working anymore, you decide what you want, make a plan, you go for it. Again, if it was that simple, everyone would do it. I think there's a lot of vulnerability for you to sit and say, okay, I'm struggling in my body right now, and I realize that I don't need to change my body. I want to change my relationship with my body. Or I recognize that I'm experiencing a lot of financial distress and there's a lot of financial trauma that I've had. So making a new budget doesn't feel good to me. Maybe this is something that I want to work through with a therapist. Maybe there's a way that I also want to kind of get into socioeconomic justice and recognize that this isn't all on me or my family, that maybe there were things going on in the world that led to this, and I deserve some space to really work through this and create a life for myself that feels safer. Yes, maybe I recognize that my experience in singleness or the relationship that I am is unfulfilling. And can I acknowledge that maybe this is a sign that I want to work on some deeper issues with how I feel about myself? And that I want to do that work before I show up in the dating space again, or I want to make sure that I'm doing that intentionally while I'm on the dating market again. That's the shift I think I wanted to invite us into so that we can engage in a process of trying again that feels different. And I wish I started with this. I wish I said that there can sometimes be something a little triggering about being in bloom or thinking about changing. Part of why I named that I was slowing down is because I've done this before. I've gone through a process before of wanting to make a big change in my life, and I've seen it fall apart. Sometimes it's because I'm too tired, or sometimes just because it's so overwhelming and it becomes easier to just stay the same. And that's not to speak against me or anyone who's going through that. I think I want to acknowledge that change is vulnerable. Acknowledging that you want something different is vulnerable. Giving yourself permission to want something different is vulnerable. All of these things challenge a core part of ourselves. We're not just deciding to get a new job. We are giving ourselves a chance at the joy that we really desire. We're not just dating someone new. We're opening our hearts again, and we're risking getting hurt knowing that we deserve to be loved. We are not just saying that we want to live somewhere else or have new friends. We're saying that we want to feel like we belong somewhere and that we don't have to work so hard to prove that we belong in that place. That's really big. That's really vulnerable. And if you are doing that, I see you and you're not alone in it. And I hope that you will tune in for the rest of the month. We're going to be talking about these pieces and these parts of change, this journey that we end up walking on. And we're going to talk about how we're kind of always doing this in different parts of our lives. We're never really done, but we do get better at it. We do get to a point where we can show up in an intention to create something different in our life and actually see it unfold. So to end, I want to offer an exercise that you check in with where you notice you've been hiding and how, and that you set some intentions about what you want to see be different. If you notice that this feels like too much, or if there's a lot of doubt and anxiety that comes up when you think about what you want to change, come up with something smaller. Come up with something that's a part of that process to the big change. If you know that you want to see some more fulfilling friendships and it feels like, how am I going to make friends at my big age? How am I going to do that? How am I going to have the depth with someone else that I had with someone I knew for years? How do you catch up with that? Spoiler alert, it is possible, even though we don't always see that, we don't always know that. And can it be, I want to make some new connections. I want to plant some seeds toward the relationships I want. Can we just work on manifesting that? Just manifesting meeting new people and creating new opportunity to build the type of relationships we want. So we don't have to think about the next girl's trips or the best friends or the things that maybe we don't have the capacity to carry right now. We can start smaller and know that starting smaller is no small feat. It's big, and it leads to the big things that I know are lying in your heart. So if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, subscribe, and rate the podcast where you're listening, and catch me on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter. I know I'm asking for a lot, but it's all worth it because that's how I keep you updated on when the next episode drops. And I'll also be sharing more about the exercises I'm talking about this month to kind of help you build a plan that you can come back to as you move through this journey to bloom. So to the Black girl who is ready to take the first step, even if it's scary, I see you, and I wish for you the experience and change that heals. Take care. Thanks for tuning in to the Black Girl Scene podcast. This podcast is meant for information purposes only and is not meant to substitute for medical advice. Although I'm a licensed therapist, this podcast does not establish a clinical relationship with you, the listener, nor does it replace a relationship with a licensed mental health professional. For more information and resources on finding a therapist or support, please visit www.blackgirlscene.com/support.